One style they built, called cedar rib, was totally dispensed with planking. It featured nothing but sturdy ribs, butted together in tongue and groove manner, running transversely the entire length of the canoe. Another style, called double cedar, was the pride of Dan Harold. It dispensed with ribs. It featured 2 sets of white cedar planks, one running lengthwise, the other transversely, separated by a thin layer of waterproof cloth. The design left both the interior and exterior smooth. Very handsome, but reportedly slippery when wet. In the early 1900s, brothers Earl and Floyd Willits began constructing what they called a double-planked canoe of red cedar in Tacoma, Washington. And though they never identified the source of their canoe design, it was a dead ringer for Harold's double cedar. But the most familiar style to come out of the Peterborough area is known generically as the Peterborough canoe. It was made by the Peterborough Canoe Company and with individual refinements by all the builders of the region. It is still in use by contemporary builders. It features narrow planks tapered at both ends and thin, closely spaced ribs. And this style is the inspiration for today's popular wood fiberglass canoes like this beauty we have here. Chapter 4, Developments in Maine. The wood canvas canoe, the type most widely recognized today as the traditional North American canoe, was developed in the last quarter of the 19th century in Maine. It was a craft more suited to industrial technology than were birch bark and all wood canoes. The style was introduced by Evan Garish, who started building wood canvas canoes in Bangor, Maine as early as 1875. 20 years later, as Jerry Stelnock reports in the Wooden Canvas Canoe, there were numerous canoe builders in Maine, and Garish was the largest of them all, turning out 150 canoes a year at an average price of $45. The wood canvas canoe, produced by such famous Maine firms as Old Town, Morris, White, Carlton, Kennebec, and others, was in essence a birch bark canoe built upside down and inside out. A builder of a birch bark canoe lays down a sheet of bark, bends up the sides, lays planking, thin planking, longitudinally inside the bark, and lastly forces the ribs down onto the planking. By contrast, a builder of a wood canvas canoe starts by bending the ribs over the top of a form, bottom downward, and finishes, then nails planking over the ribs, stretches canvas tightly over the planking, and finishes by attaching the gunnels. This wood canvas method of construction spread rapidly across North America. In Canada, the Chestnut Canoe Company built its first wood canvas canoes in the winter of 1897-98 in New Brunswick. In a stroke of commercial genius, Chestnut obtained a Canadian patent on the new technology in 1905, effectively preventing Canadian firms from building wood canvas canoes. Peterborough promptly challenged the patent in court and lost. We hereby warn anyone in Canada against using our construction, subsequent Chestnut catalog stated. In 1923, the two firms merged, but they, in the words of Ken Solway, perpetrated one of the greatest shell games in Canadian business. Unknown to customers, Chestnut thereafter built all the wood canvas canoes sold under its own name, as well as Peterborough's. Wisconsin was soon as prominent as Maine for producing wood canvas canoes. Thompson Brothers Boat Manufacturing Company, founded in Peshtigo in 1904, was for a time the largest canoe builder in America. The firm's wood canvas canoes employed construction techniques uncommon in the industry, such as bevel-edged planking, designed to prevent grit from working through the planks and lodging between the canvas and the hull. Other early Badger State builders of wood canvas canoes included Dunphy, which made boats and canoes in Eau Claire from 1854 to 1934 and later in Oshkosh. Also, Shell Lake, which was founded in 1897 and ended up part of Arctic Enterprises, makers of Arctic Cat snowmobiles. And finally, Racine, which started building canoes in the 1870s, underwent complicated changes in management and location, and went out of business in the late 1920s. Chapter 5, Flowering and Fading. Bear with me, we only have 6. At the end of the 19th century, canoes of all types assumed a new and romantic role in North American life. They offered a way for young couples to share pleasant places and private moments. In 1999, the Canadian Canoe Museum exhibited a Peterborough Girling canoe. Its long bow deck was shaped to seat the female passenger comfortably while she faced her beau, who paddled from the stern. One of the cabinets in the canoe was designed to hold liquid refreshment, another to accommodate a Victrola. Jamie Benedictson touched on this in Idleness, Water, and a Canoe when he wrote, quote, "A Canadian is someone who knows how to make love in a canoe." But Canadians had no monopoly on romance. Photos from this era show Boston's Charles River filled virtually bank to bank with courting canoes. But the popularity of canoeing could not last. Bicycles and bloomers did it in. Alan Craig recounts the time artist Frederick Remington bicycled past the canoe factory of J. Henry Rushton, probably the most famous name in American canoe building. Rushton muttered that now he was sure he would go out of business, and he soon did. In most of North America, bicycles, motorcycles, trains, planes, and automobiles assumed the starring role canoes had played in travel, commerce, and even courtship. Simultaneously, technological advances in canoe designs and construction materials were turning traditional wood-based canoes into endangered species. In a twist on beating swords into plowshares, after World War II, aircraft companies turned to making canoes instead of fighter planes from aluminum. Chapter 6. From WCHA to WCHM. In 1967, Jeff and I returned from Connecticut to work in Wisconsin. He as the State Historic Preservation Officer, I as managing editor of Wisconsin Trails magazine. Seeking an outdoor activity we could both enjoy, we settled on canoeing, and we bought one of those aluminum canoes. We had both been introduced to canoeing as children. Jeff was taught to paddle by Cal Rutstrom, noted outdoorsman, writer, and canoeing teacher at Camp Lincoln in Brainerd, Minnesota. My first canoe was a wood canvas sponson model continuously in need of repair. It was kept at a family cottage north of Rhinelander, now owned by my brother and sister-in-law, Spoonerites Shane and Elizabeth Weber. Canoeing turned out to be my dish of tea. I am not mechanically inclined, so for me, the canoe was the perfect recreational vehicle. Unless you count the paddles, no moving parts.